What makes Leavenworth so fun is that it isn't really a German town. It is just a make-believe German Bavarian town with the American personality. So if you were in Germany, you would have to have your red roof. You can't just have a gray roof and a green roof, and you would have to have laws on where the windows belong and what size windows, and if you wouldn't have a fence around it when everybody else has a fence, well, that would not be good. And you know, there goes a lifestyle along in Germany that you cannot change a culture. You cannot say, this is Germany now, because it's Americans that live here, so we have a different culture. And here we have been able to combine our culture, which is something that is very pretty and wonderful. And you know, we put on a costume and we just say we're Bavarian because it's like being on a stage. We're having fun doing it. You know, we just look a little Bavarian or a little German. Well, for me it's true, but I'm not really a Bavarian either, so I had to go back over there and see what they do. But you almost play a part. So, right after the first year, the women began thinking about a parade, and they shaped the Autumn Festival. And they made it with a float because, you know, that's what they knew. Most of them that lived here, parade, we need a float. That was American. So this is how the float kind of rolled in first. And then they try to fix it a little Bavarian, or let it go with people that dress up Bavarian. So they tried that combination of doing part American and part Bavarian. And probably would have been better to just have a wagon, a big beer wagon, right from the front. But the people that lived here had not been in Bavaria. There was only some of the soldiers. So, we just got, in our traditions here, we just got a real, I think, American Bavarian town. And it worked. That was really the main. It's not just that the mountains look like Bavaria. The buildings began to look sort of like Bavaria. It wasn't until 20 years later, though, that they actually had at the city hall, they had a planning commission, and they said, you know, we really need to. And some of the men had gone over now. Now they're having a little money. Now there's money coming to town. And they're going over to Bavaria saying, is this actually a Bavarian building? And they became more, you know, in '84 when the engine was built, well, the Johnsons designed that whole thing, but I don't think they've been to Bavaria yet. And I think they did that during the building plan. They went to Bavaria. And then after that, of course, then they went over there and bought the furniture there. And, you know, they did everything then right and got better and better. But it wasn't until later, at least like 20 years later, that people began to go over and actually take pictures and just copy it. Pension Anna is a good example. It was the first copy. Somebody took a picture, and that was Bob Smith, took a picture and built this building for his wife, Anna. And it was very authentic. And you look at it today and you go, oh my, that looks beautiful. But that was later.
Leavenworth was picking up speed with its new German identity. It was time to create a Chamber of Commerce to help spread the Leavenworth news.
Chamber of Commerce, as a result of the original Life Committee that began back in the early 1960s, particularly 64, 65, and the Chamber of Commerce, along with the Autumn League Festival Association, was established to do a promotional aspect of Leavenworth. The Chamber's primary responsibilities have been and always probably will be to promote Leavenworth and to be able to get the information out, basically.
One of the most historical buildings in Leavenworth was called House Lorelei. Before that, it belonged to the Fields. House Lorelei was considered the first mansion in Leavenworth.
And then to living here, it became necessary for us to turn it into a bed and breakfast. And it wasn't only the necessity that made it so exciting, it was just the fact that you could open your doors, and it was such a beautiful place that people always drove up to it and wanted to know, and they would go, oh no, there's just a home. And then I would think, once I came to the conclusion that I needed to do something else, I said, well, every time you say, oh yeah, it's just a home, you know, there goes $100 driving out your driveway. How dumb is that? So by just opening the door, people just came right in. There wasn't even having to advertise or anything. We didn't have very many hotels like we have today.
Art in the Park is an opportunity for local artists to share their passion with other people. You can find numerous paintings depicting the beautiful Leavenworth area.
You know, initially Art in the Park was not a money-making concern for people to sell their wares. When my dad was involved with it, in the beginning, it was just, they just needed artwork for an exhibit in the park to get people to stop and walk through and have a little event. They were looking for things to draw tourism.
It worked.
And you know, he never sold anything. He just in fact, most of the time he didn't even stick around. He just went up there and set out pictures and left. Went home and worked in the orchard. Then at the end of the weekend, he'd go out and pick it up. And you know, that's the kind of thing that was going on. And there were, at Rocky Reach, they used to do that too. They had art exhibits and stuff. And local artists would put up pictures.
At this time, the Old House Lorelei is home to Leavenworth's own Upper Valley Museum. The Upper Valley Museum is a great place to visit if you have the desire and the passion to learn about Leavenworth. The staff is very welcoming and knowledgeable. I owe them a big thank you. Coming in 2009, the train is making its way back to Leavenworth.
The train's history in this town is incredibly rich. Leavenworth is here because of the railroads. In late 1800s, 1890, the Great Northern, 1892, the Great Northern Railroad came through, and right outside City Hall, where Highway 2 is, that used to be a train yard. So Leavenworth was a train town, as well as a lumber town with the lumber mill here. So Leavenworth got its roots and its start as being a train town. And then, of course, you know, when the train was diverted out of out of Tumwater Canyon, and then went around through Plain, that's when Leavenworth started to see a little demise in its economy. And for about 30 years, town was severely depressed. So we have a rich history of the train starting here, and we're going to have even a more rich history once it comes back in 2009, because it'll be a very strong part of our economic development and our way that we do business here. So it's kind of coming full circle. You know, we started off as a train town in the previous century, and now as we're in the 21st century, it's rejoining us here again. Yeah, so we have a way to come, but at least we're taking the right steps to get there. But, you know, we're going to have it, growing up in the East Coast, trains were a part of my life every day. Living in Manhattan as a young adult, I didn't have a car. Subways were there. There was such an extensive network of subways and elevated trains that you could get around very easily and be very mobile. Other civic centers like Boston, like Chicago, have a network of rail. Even California is doing a great job on some of the inner city rail. So we'll get there, but the opportunities are going to be amazing, where you could actually hopefully travel between Seattle and Tri-Cities by train. So it would be, I know there's talk about having a network of rail that crisscrosses the state of Washington, where you could get to any of the four corners within 5 hours via train. So those are some goals that are being talked about.